Beth Manson's out. Pat Shea.
Here.
Dylan Penn is out. Robert Garstack.
Here.
And Lou Rivera.
Here.
Lou will be covering for Dylan Penn this evening.
Manson.
It's just, yeah, I said that when I did his name.
Okay. I'd like to point out the fire exits. There are two in front of me to the audience's rear. There is another out in this hallway to my left, which is a main door, and then another in that direction out to the patio. With that, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. All right, first item on the agenda is Henry Farm. Oh, there's Mark. He snuck in. You'll just have to, I don't know if you heard, to turn the mic on.
Okay, we on?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. For the record, Mark Seamers from Peter, Zach, and Fow for Henry Farm Subdivision.
Want to give us a status of where we are?
Sure. So what we submitted for tonight is a revised amended subdivision design plan set. On the plan set, it reflects the revised design to match the amended layout, as well as showing the updated wetland delineation. We've also submitted a wetland comparison plan, which shows the newly delineated wetlands on site versus the previously delineated wetlands. We have submitted an updated stormwater pollution prevention plan, which now matches the revised project layout. And last, we submitted a letter from John Dahlgren from Tim Miller Associates, which is updating the board on the secret consistency analysis. The quick rundown of the letter is that the wetlands have been redelineated and located on site. The planning board's wetlands consultant, Dave Tompkins, visited the site and walked the site with Steve Marino, who is from Tim Miller Associates, during the field work in 2004. And the redelineation is now shown on the plans. This delineation is being compared to the old delineation, and all the other work is being completed by TMA and will be submitted for the March planning board. So tonight we wanted to come back in front of the planning board, give you an update on where we are with the project, answer any questions we can tonight, and keep moving it forward.
A quick question. Is there a wetland report that accompanies the wetland delineation?
I believe that will be in the...
Tim Miller?
Right.
Okay. Yes, because I'd like to see a report, and I'm very curious why some of these shrank to the extent they did. Unless, so the clarification I would also like is, are these wetlands redelineated because this is what is believed to now be jurisdictional, or they actually shrank in size? And number two, and this is a question for Ashley, but I think ultimately for New York State DEC, I don't know how the new regulations come into play for this particular site, or if they're exempt.
So we looked at that. It's not within the urban area. It's just outside the urban area, and it didn't appear to have any of the 11 criteria. So I don't believe it's under jurisdiction, but if the board wanted, they could ask the applicant to submit for jurisdictional determination.
Did it come up at all did it show up on any of the mappers with those potential new wetlands? Do we know?
Are you asking me?
I'll check. I'm actually checking, so. While I'm doing this, why don't we go to Sean's comments so he can run through those.
I really don't have very many new comments. A lot of my other comments didn't appear to be addressed. One of the items that I wanted to bring to Mark's attention was during the site walk, I think I had mentioned it to Vince, but it was in my last comment memo about potentially moving a portion of the road because it could be significantly less grading.
Yeah, I think we appreciate your comment on that and understand where it's coming from, but it's my understanding that nothing on the layout is changing based on what was stipulated in the agreement.
We do have this SWIP, and that's under review. And then the only other item that I wanted to bring to the board's attention was the wetlands and whether or not, and Mark, maybe I heard you say Dave Tompkin was at the site. Is that correct?
That's what John Dahlgren's letter says.
And he confirmed the new wetlands flags? Because I was going to suggest that he visit the site to confirm
Well,
the wetlands.
I can only rely on what the letter says. It says the planning board's wetlands ecology consultant, Mr. Dave Tompkins of CHA, conducted a field visit with Steve Marino of TMA during field work in 2024. The redelineation has indicated that the wetland areas on the site have been reduced since originally mapped.
So it's kind of unclear. It sounds as if Dave Tompkins walked it with Steve Marino, and maybe it was flagged at that time, but we just need confirmation.
From Dave. So I
Yeah.
think my suggestion would be let's wait until that wetlands report comes in from Tim Miller, and we'll refer the delineation and the report to Dave to verify what Tim Miller is representing.
So there are at least two little areas that are showing up as informational freshwater wetland mapping. They also have included wetland soils, which cover a part of the site. And then, of course, there's the NWI. They're not significant large areas, but the question is, if not exempt, then there's a 100-foot jurisdictional area around them if DEC decides to, and I think it's up to the applicant, to make the case that if you think you're exempt because it was previously approved.
Now, in preparing for the meeting tonight, I was going through our file, and I did see a letter from the DEC, and I'm assuming it was based on, did you send out a lead agency notification?
Yes.
And it was, I think, a 2 or 3 page letter, and
Okay.
they addressed the wetlands in that letter, saying that there was no DEC jurisdictional wetlands on the site.
I think that's
Before
from,
January 1st, 2025.
yeah, that wasn't recent. I'm,
So that would have to be updated.
2023.
yeah, so that's definitely before. It talks about a Class C stream. It talks about, Army Corps wetlands. It had the northern long-eared bat listed.
Right.
And, yeah. So, yeah, that was definitely before. But, the exemption language to me isn't entirely clear. But I think, again, it's the case to make to DEC because this is all new to all of us. And frankly, we just don't know what is and what isn't. And you definitely didn't see it in the census area? You didn't see it in the census?
Didn't see it in this.
Is there a Monroe census, or what's the name, do you remember the name of the census area? Is it, it's not Newburgh. It's not,
I actually have
Woodbury?
Kelly Morris. She's mapped it in GIS, so let me see if I have. Screenshot of the area.
I can get it. And Cornell had mapped them too. I just don't know what the name of the urbanized area would be. Does she have a name for it?
Unfortunately, I don't have the screen.
So what we're talking about, folks, is that the New York State DEC You sent it? Okay. Has passed regulations to update the freshwater wetlands regulations, and they're no longer mapped. They're 12.4 acres in size, but they're not mapped. But then in addition, there are these wetlands of unusual importance. And if any of them meet 11 criteria, it can be considered a wetland that's regulated by the New York State DEC. One of the criteria is called whether the wetland is in an area that's a census urban area. And if you see this map here, I don't think it doesn't extend all the way down, but this is showing, for instance, Walden. This is the Newburgh area. This black outline is a census urban area. Nope, we may have it here. So if I zoom in, this is showing KJ is in that urban area, so any wetland there is now regulated by the state. And then it continues down. This is Monroe in here. Is the one you have clear?
It is.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's, I can't make it out. Let me see yours. So the red is the urban area.
Like everything north of School Road is in the urban area. Everything south along Lakes Road is not.
Right. They try to capture the suburban areas, and so it looks like kind of down Lakes Road, it doesn't include Henry Farm.
Right.
So, but as I said, the other indicator for now is the freshwater wetland mapping that they provided where they show new wetlands. And so that kind of triggers at least checking into it and then finding out whether, again, because of past, we'll have to figure out whether because of past activities and approvals, et cetera, whether this is exempt or not. All right, so Sean, with that, you want to continue on?
Yeah, I think I basically hit the highlights from the memo. I think one of the big things we're waiting on is a secret consistency analysis to be able to evaluate the new project versus the old.
And that's coming from TMA, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I know I still want to get out to the site. I just haven't been able to. And now with the weather the way it is, it's difficult. But hopefully if we get...
It's nicer in March than in February.
I was going to say, when we get into March, we'll definitely make an attempt to get out there. Because it's still off leaf, but it makes things easier to walk around and see. But hopefully not as cold and there won't be snow on the ground. So with that, Ashley, comments?
Or just a couple. One we had talked about previously, the plans currently identify the old zoning districts. And I know this is pursuant to the stipulation, it's subject to the old zoning, but the plan should reflect the current zoning districts that it's in, and there could just be, an explanatory note explaining the distinction. For your bulk table, if you could add in the dimensions, the required and proposed dimensions for the commercial lot, parcel E. I know there's no building proposed presently, but to show, that it would comply with the zoning. And then on your first sheet, also you have a wetlands disturbance table. If you could add a column indicating the wetland buffer disturbance. I don't know if the column for wetland disturbance is meant to encompass that or not, but if you could break it out. I think they're all local wetland disturbances, but whether it's to the local wetland itself or to the buffer, just to make that clear. And then everything else I have is just comments from that June 2023 letter that sets forth the scope. So when you do the seeker analysis and your next submission, it would be good if you could go through all the points in that letter and just, give kind of a response letter to those, say whether, it's in the seeker consistency analysis or it's, shown on a certain plan sheet. Just go through those various bullet points that were in there. That would be helpful.
Okay.
All right, any comments on Henry Farm? Pat, do you have any comments at this point?
No, I don't.
My comments are all related to the wetlands and the expectation of a wetland report and perhaps a narrative indicating sort of what changed, because wetlands don't, it's soils and vegetation, so I don't know how they changed in that manner. Unless they're really showing what they think is regulated, but our freshwater wetlands law is different. And we need to make sure they didn't do an Army Corps wetland analysis. It needs to be a town of Monroe wetland delineation. So I think that needs to be assessed. Any comments on this, on Henry Farm at this point?
No comment.
No comments? All right. So essentially, we're kind of in a holding pattern. You've remapped and provided this to us, and we need to hear back from Tim Miller and Associates to get the seeker documentation. And then, again, I think in the meantime, you can probably see if we can get something for the wetlands.
Right.
An explanation, that'd be great.
Will do.
Okay?
I guess is the direction to have PMP submit the determination to New York State DEC at this point, or?
I think the applicant submits it. I don't think we submit it, correct?
Right, I'm sorry, that's who I mean. Should they submit the jurisdictional determination form?
I think they should. And I'd like Ashley and Noreen CC'd on any correspondence that goes to them. Only because if there's a letter that makes representations about approvals and where things are in the process, I would want our attorney to see that. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm staying here for.
You're staying here for the next one? Okay.
Oh,
Here for 3 of them, aren't you?
All right. The next item on the agenda is Lanza Leva. Now you have both a cluster plan, conservation plan, and the sketch plan. What would you like me to bring up?
right.
Cluster plan's required.
Start with the conventional because you need to have that zoning compliant in order to,
Right. The sketch plan should be called the conventional plan.
Conventional, okay. All right, so this is the conventional. And why don't we start with Sean? Did you have comments on this and its consistency with zoning and subdivision regulation standards?
First, the kind of standard comment for all the plans, we need the number of proposed bedrooms for each dwelling on the plans, as well as for the existing dwelling. Fragments. But just, we had a note regarding that the conventional had significantly more impervious area in the conventional versus the cluster. So just, that could be a consideration for the board when choosing the conventional versus the cluster. We had a note about Lot 2, utilizing the existing shared access way for some of the other homes along Stevens Court. Based on the town road code, that would create a private road that would have to be created with a turnaround, which I don't know at this point whether or not there's sufficient land under control by the applicant to create that private road. So I'm not sure Lot 2 would work as currently configured.
Sean, what comment are we on?
It's number 8.
Okay.
You're down to the sketch plan you're going over the conventional plan comments.
Right.
Okay.
So that was number 4, Mark? Under.
Okay.
And we also noted that there's no front yard setback on Lot 2.
Some of these are looking like flag lots, and we call them rear lots,
For dwellings.
rear dwellings. So I think there has to be a determination whether these would be considered rear dwellings and whether they meet whatever lot frontage requirements are set forth in the zoning.
Yeah, I believe the submission was made and copied to the building inspector and the highway superintendent, so hopefully we have a determination. You haven't received anything, have you? Okay, hopefully we have a determination on that coming.
Unless it's requested, they won't give anything.
Okay.
But I guess was that proposed as a private road as opposed to,
Looks like a driveway.
because a shared driveway wouldn't be permitted?
Well,
as shown
it
in-
wouldn't meet as currently proposed, it wouldn't meet the design requirements for a private road.
Well, so it has 1, 2, 3, 4 homes coming off of it? Is it?
3 currently and a 4th proposed, yes.
Right, so it's Mazzola, Turnbull, the one up at the top of the map, which isn't labeled, and then the new Lot 2. There's this looks like a landlocked lot, the Mamuduski.
Sorry?
Is this a landlocked lot in here?
I do. Tax
If
maps.
this is that a vacant lot that was sold already off of that?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't know if it has access rights through 21-4-5.
There's a right-of-way by the town to the northwest of that land, what appears to be a landlocked parcel.
I think as part of Phase 1, it was proposing that, I guess what's being talked about as the private road or the proposed shared driveway, that was going to be offered to the town. I don't know whether it was formally offered, whether it's been accepted or not.
And it looks like it's landlocked to
He was gonna
top
leave.
of the page.
Where is this parcel again? Was by Rye Hill, Berry? Trying to remember.
Correct, where
Rye Hill,
Rye Hill and Berry split
Rye and Berry split
to the north.
to the north here, Stevens Court. This one.
That's
So
land.
it's this guy here, right?
There's
that-
a little, almost what looks like a private road access right there
Uh,
to the,
So it's actually part of this. These are showing up as one tax parcel.
if you turn the aerial off, I think you can see
Oh.
you see the right of way there?
Right-of-way.
Is here. But, here's open streets now. Let me go back to aerial. So, this little guy doesn't have a home on it, but the home is here on 14.
I don't
That's
think
all
they're the
part of that
same lot.
parcel.
They're separated by that right of way.
but they're the
Well,
same
they're
SBL.
highlighting as if they're the same. It's showing up as one lot. Like, almost like there's a land hook,
Oh, okay.
maybe. We're gonna check here. It'll show it on the tax map. So, yes, it's land. I is attached to, I think, this one?
Yes.
Yeah, so almost looks like a separate parcel. And I don't think there's I don't think that really would have access off of that private road. All right.
That's what we had specifically on the conventional. I just want to bring a couple up. So there is a wetland that's located just to the north of the parent parcel that appears to be within the census, the urban area on the census. So that could be jurisdictional by the DEC given the recent regs. So this one should be submitted to DEC for their potential jurisdiction. In both the conventional and the cluster, the roadway cul-de-sac limit is exceeded currently, and in my opinion, the condition is worsening because of additional driveways off the dead end. I know we've discussed this before, but I bring it to light again because the applicant stated that in the response memo that they didn't agree. So I wanted to bring that to light, as well as their opinion that their secondary egress out to Rye Hill that was previously proposed under the first phase to be constructed in the second phase, they believe is no longer required at this time either.
And for what reason it's required?
Because that approval
Just on the basis of
is
it
no
having
longer
lapsed?
valid. It lapsed. That project doesn't exist. This is a new project. I don't think, or it's our opinion that the restrictions and conditions on the Phase 2 approval that lapsed and no longer exists doesn't apply to the new proposed subdivision that has to go through a full new review. Sure, sorry. So obviously we have differing opinions on this, and I guess we need to figure out or come up with a solution or path forward that's, going to settle this discussion for both parties.
So it's correct that that approval previously has lapsed, but it's essentially seeking approval of the same thing, a little different. There would need to be presented to the planning board, in my opinion, reasoning studies why those conditions would no longer be warranted, because they were warranted back then, and in order to find a reason why they shouldn't be warranted now. I think the big issue really with the cul-de-sac, so it was proposed previously as a temporary cul-de-sac, and as Sean noted, it doesn't meet zoning or doesn't meet the subdivision requirements or restrictions in terms of length. So I'm assuming it was approved previously because it was going to be temporary. So in order to, you would have to get around that in somehow.
Yeah, so
Whether it'd be asking the board for waivers from the subdivision.
is it in the subdivision
regulations?
regulations?
It is.
Okay, so that'd be a waiver, but I think we've also,
Can I just ask, what would the waiver be on, though? It's an existing cul-de-sac.
but the cul-de-sac was part of this overall subdivision that was built and it was allowed to be built and exceed the length because it was anticipated this would go all the way around. Having said that, I think we have to see where the standard is located and whether we can waive it. And we need to communicate with the highway superintendent in terms of the preferences of the town. And we need to look at it from a fire perspective, fire safety and fire code. And probably should talk to the fire district as to preferences too. So I think from our perspective, it isn't, we're not saying, you know, these various accesses, et cetera. We haven't made a determination at this point in time that they're necessary, but there are several agencies and officials that we need to communicate with and
Okay.
then make a final decision what we think is appropriate.
So on our end, we need to seek a determination from the highway superintendent and the fire district.
I think that Sean can coordinate that and communicate with the highway superintendent, and then if they want you to be part of that conversation, then, again, Sean can coordinate it.
I can tell you that when this cul-de-sac was being made permanent, the fire district did go out and they did analyze the cul-de-sac for turning and safety, and they determined that we actually had them increase the bulb a little bit, but they did determine that it was good for them. But you know, we would be happy to discuss it with them again and see if they feel that it remains that way.
So based on the conventional, from your perspective, how many lots have been proven and which ones are still questionable? We have the whole flag lot, rear dwelling lot interpretation that has to be made. So right now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what you're
Correct.
indicating from the conventional plan that you think is yielded.
So in the conventional, my opinion is only Lot 2 at this point is not proven to be buildable, so the other 4 are.
And is it in part because of the rear dwelling?
So that is solely based on the private road.
Oh, okay. That it's functioning as a private road.
That's correct.
And then I think, and again, I think even 2, 4, I just want to get a sense of whether those have the frontage requirements. Not so much 1, but these are flag lots.
So the frontage requirement, there is none, like
Okay.
a street
Or
frontage
lot width,
requirement. It's lot width, which
Okay.
is the average of the front lot line and the back lot line.
Okay. So based on that, determine
Based on that, the other 4 lots comply.
because of the averaging.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Ashley? Or would you still have comments to go through on the,
Unless you wanted to shift to the cluster.
sure. Let's do that. This has an open area. So for the cluster, there has to be, is it 50% open space? So you're showing this loop in here being open, and going down to Rye Hill would all be open, and then all of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are clustered off of the cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Potential rear dwelling issue on lot, I can't see it. Oh, that's right, yeah. Right, so the rear dwellings could be permitted by the planning board in the cluster.
In the cluster.
Right. The applicant did prepare a conservation plan to identify some of the key features of the open space. I had a couple comments on that. Number one, you have the shared driveway up top, as well as the other driveway for the neighbor to the northwest that traverses through the conservation area.
So is it really conservation area when you have?
Are those portions of the proposed parcel really conservation? That's my question. Let's see.
So that's this portion in here. So in other words, if there are driveways there, how can it be really open space?
Right.
Okay.
Dwellings, I think, very near the top of the ridge. My question is whether or not the dwelling exceeds the height of the ridge, which is not clear because the grading's not done yet, but which is against the ridgeline preservation recommendation. And we had some cleanups on the bulk for the applicant.
But this is what was approved, right? This is the signed one, I believe I brought up. No, I
At the
didn't,
convention.
sorry. This is the signed, right here. So it's interesting, the way this is shown. It's still showing a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, so this goes back many, many years. And I was involved in a lot of those years. So there were a lot of different iterations of that plan. And we originally proposed to bring that road all the way back around and create one big loop. There's also an unimproved right-of-way that could connect, I think it's the Stephen Court extension, which has Orange and Rockland Utilities running through it. That was another place where we were looking to improve and make this cul-de-sac a shorter distance. And during public hearings and public feedback, both of those connections were removed. The public didn't want the improvement going through those right-of-ways, and the planning board didn't believe that it was necessary, so they were taken off the plan. So that was ended in a cul-de-sac, and there were many other projects also along the Rye Hill corridor, including Feeney, which we thought that a nice connection going through Feeney would have worked out well, but that project also, didn't happen.
Remind me, on this, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
7, 8,
Were these also on this side?
yes.
Let me go back to your sketch.
The one in the corner, do you have the phase 1 sign plans? Go to the cover sheet. Yeah, that's not phase 1. So if I can I just jump up here?
Yep.
I'm just going to take the whole thing.
Yeah, that's
So the
fine.
line came up along lot 6 here, then came up and up lot 16 and around. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, so you're
was
saying,
phase 2.
so number
So it was 7
8 has
new-
already been constructed.
It was 7 new houses plus
And
the
then the
existing
one.
house.
Okay,
And
8
now we're
lots.
proposing 4 new houses plus the existing house.
Got it.
So I believe, from the feedback I'm getting, it looks like we need to settle the conventional plan.
Do, because that then sets forth the maximum number of lots, and then
Right.
from there, well, I guess we make a decision whether cluster or conventional is pursued, and we can't really then focus on a cluster until we know whether the conventional works.
Right.
And that's based on, I think, some input from highway and just looking at the regulations and what's allowed in terms of, for instance, rear dwelling and the private road.
And in the meantime, we can also pursue highway and fire on the cul-de-sac length.
Yeah, because either way, that has to get addressed
Right.
for the layout. Yeah. So the conventional, we're just saying, could they have done this under our laws? Would you have allowed it? But then we have to get to, all right, well, what is going to be proposed? Did you have more comments you want to touch upon?
Just two more that doesn't apply to either the cluster or conventional specifically. First, the well testing is required, one well for 1 to 5 lots. I know there is at least one existing well out there that could be worked on now. Secondly, both subdivisions rely on sewer and a sewer extension through private property. The easement is noted as proposed, but I think it was shown on the Phase 1 subdivision.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if that is a proposed or existing easement.
It is, it's existing.
It's existing, okay.
Yeah.
Was it
This
easement?
is, I believe this is Orange County Sewer District 1, correct?
It is, yes.
And the sewer is constructed up to behind, I can't read that lot number. Behind lot 11.
Oh, it is constructed to there?
Yes, that
Okay.
manhole exists.
Okay,
And the reason it's split is because of the high point. So everything on the other side of the high point would need a pump if it came to this side. So that's why it runs in an easement on the outside here. But it is constructed up to that manhole right there.
yeah, so my concern was,
To this one?
Yes.
Okay, so any of this shown, and
Right,
that one?
It makes it an easy connection, yes, to
Okay.
extend it.
So this is a proposed one?
That's proposed, yes.
Okay.
my concern was if that was a proposed easement, is it even feasible to install it there, given that a new homeowner is there and not controlled by the applicant? But if it's already installed, then that's a moot point.
Right. And that easement exists.
Can you give
Right.
a copy of that easement?
Of the language?
Yeah, we can look at it. The county wouldn't accept it if the easement wasn't there, but we'll try to find the language for you.
So just a quick question, because I'm not an engineer and I don't understand what flows where. You have this termination of the sanitary sewer here in the cul-de-sac. Why wouldn't all these be fed by that sanitary sewer line, or is it just a
They
matter
have
of?
to go over the hill,
It's the hill,
right.
okay. So to stay with gravity flow, they have to come in from the other direction?
Right.
Okay,
See the ridge there, all the,
this here,
right.
okay. Got it, thank you.
That was it, yep.
Ashley?
Nothing really, additional. I think we need to finish the cluster first, the conventional, and then go from there.
We can ask the board if you have any reactions to, the sketch is going to be the sketch. And this is what they're showing could be done if it was a conventional plan meeting the bulk requirements and not a cluster. And so we don't even know how many lots may happen because we haven't proved it out yet. But it's going to possibly be 5, maybe 4, sounds like. And then we'll have to look at a cluster plan, and the cluster plan, I don't know that this piece of it is considered open space, but a chunk of open space would be preserved. But at least from my perspective, there are a lot of driveways coming off of the one cul-de-sac. I feel like it's tight here. And in my opinion, I would like maybe at least one of them somewhere else. That's just an initial reaction. I don't know where. But just seeing, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming off of this cul-de-sac seems like a lot. The benefit is, at least the way this is being shown, it gets rid of this whole access concept, I believe. It is giving some buffer to some of the neighbors. I just think what's happening now is it's crowding them near this existing home, and that's why I'd like to kind of see. That's my concern about the way this is laid out, that it's now kind of crowded around this particular property. And that's why I was trying to see the signed, what did it look like before? And he wasn't going to have, all these driveways coming off in this area. It was going to be a continuation of the cul-de-sac. And I guess that's a question. Can this still be extended farther to get back into these areas and space them out a little more? But then we get up again into that issue of how long a cul-de-sac is reasonable. And that's where I think the highway superintendent and fire district has to weigh in.
Agreed, yep.
Okay. Lou, any thoughts on this? And you're or reserving your right to continue to comment when we get more information? That. Okay. Lou, any questions you have or comments in looking at any of the layouts? Okay. Bob? Okay.
No questions.
You were.
Am I on? Yep.
There you are. And then,
Sorry.
in the meantime, you should do a quick check of the wetland situation.
And that's for the buffer, because that's an off-site wetland.
See if DEC will take jurisdiction and/or if they'll change the limits of the wetland boundary.
Okay.
That would then affect this area.
That
potentially.
could affect the on-site or affect the buffer limits.
Okay. So I think that's it. Did you have any questions?
No, not this
Okay.
time.
All right. And so just, I know there's members of the public that are here that are interested in this. They're busy communicating, so. We'll move on to Monroe Commons. But this is going to continue, obviously, because we don't have answers to all these questions. All right, so the next item on, ooh, what happened to my agenda? Here it is. I closed it out. So Monroe Commons.
All about, well, I don't know.
You might like it that way.
Maybe not.
It might. Are you coming up? No?
They must think this one's easy. Me on that.
We'll find out. All right, so we had discussions previously with regard to this whole grading, and grading before we know what's happening with Woodbury. So where are things at this point in time?
Correct. So, as I told you last time, as far as Woodbury, if you want a quick update on that, everything was submitted back to them. They sent us an email and said that we are not going to be on the February agenda because they had too many items. So we are looking at the beginning of March. So that's where we stand in Woodbury. As far as the temporary grading goes, I revised the temporary grading plan and I addressed Sean's comments that he had, I believe, to his satisfaction, that he had at the last meeting. We show temporary grading that will allow for grading of our site and the continued grading into Woodbury if and when we get the approval to clear and grade in the village of Woodbury. And it doesn't stop the construction of a retaining wall. And we also prepared for informational purposes, we prepared a proposed retaining wall location. We showed the location where it would be constructed between the parking lot and road and the town-village line. And we had a structural engineer submit a letter showing, I believe, 3 different types of retaining walls that can be constructed in this area with this space. And I also attached to the back of the letter some views of what that retaining wall could look like with sculpted shotcrete on it, to make the
As
planning
with
board.
what?
I'm sorry?
With what?
Shotcrete. To make the planning board a little more comfortable that a retaining wall could be, an attractive retaining wall could be constructed in that area. So I believe that we have shown the temporary grading, phased grading, that can allow the site to go to construction while we pursue the Village of Woodbury clearing and grading. And we would like to discuss it with you and get your blessing if you're willing.
So these are images of the different types of shotcrete?
Correct. It's sculpted.
I-
It's sprayed on and then it's sculpted.
And then I think the question is, what's the height?
So the height varies of the retaining wall. I mean, you can see based on the proposed grading that's going into the Village of Woodbury, the areas where it goes further in would be the highest points of the retaining wall. The absolute highest point of the retaining wall is behind the parking area, right about there, where it would be 30 feet high, but it quickly reduces, and behind the building, if you go down the roadway, behind the proposed
Direction?
building, yeah, that direction. Right about there where those catch basins are, it's about 6 feet right there. And then as you continue down, it goes back up where the grading is again. So maximum height is 30 feet. It is as short as 4 to 6 feet, and then it goes back up to probably around 20.
So,
I apologize. When it's 30 feet, how long is, that's going to be the weakest spot?
I don't have an exact number on how long it is at 30. It's not long, though.
not long
Relatively.
meaning not 300 or not long meaning 20?
Is it less than 1,000 feet?
Yeah, oh, yes, definitely.
Well, we have our parking spaces, which are about, 9 or 10 feet? And so you have maximum height of 30. I mean, we don't have top and bottom here, so.
Out where your curb.
Right in here. Mark is still counting,
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah.
so it
My
might be.
guess is it's around 50 to 60 feet for the 30-foot height.
That's it?
Yeah, and then just based on the existing grade that's on the other side of the line and the proposed grade on the parking lot, it starts coming down both sides. And then it quickly comes down with the proposed grading right here.
Okay, so you're comparing it to this map to see where the wall's being put in place instead of the grading happening.
Correct.
You know, I have to say, the wall isn't such a horrible thing. Only because all this grading isn't happening then. And I think we may have been thinking about, well, what we don't know at this point is, because you said 30 is the highest, but is it for a stretch going to 25 for a while? But even 25, I always think of visualize parking spaces and the length of a parking space. So it's like the length of a parking space plus 5 feet, you know? To then not to have to do all of this. But this is what the applicant wants, and they're gonna
Yeah.
vegetate it.
I think it was our opinion, I thought it was a shared opinion, that a green slope
Yeah.
that can be traversed by wildlife, you know, it's not a concrete face, was preferential and probably beneficial, which is why we went that route.
You know, there were so many iterations before this, so we've seen so many things, but ultimately, this has to get revegetated, right? So,
And potentially you could trees, not just grass.
There are a few trees shown on that slope with a little rock retaining wall around it to allow them to grow.
yeah, and honestly, I think over time, I don't know, what's the grade?
It's 2-on-1.
1-1.
2-on-1? Some of it just vegetates. If you let it be and you're not maintaining it,
Right.
it just goes to, you know,
Nobody's gonna
it's
mow it.
successional.
Wildflowers.
Yeah, it's
Right.
successional, so it'll grow over time.
Right.
But we didn't show a lot of trees in here,
I don't recall the landscape.
which is interesting because we have our tree law, right? And there's a certain number that they have to pay. And I don't know that the tree law says that if there are plantings, that they have to be in the town of Monroe.
Reduced fee if they're not
The town-
on the site.
I think it might,
Does it allow it to be elsewhere?
it allows it to be on other property, but I think it has to be in the town.
Because that would be a way to do the plantings relative to this site. And
But
then,
does it count that that's technically still part of the site because it's controlled by the applicant? It is.
Being replaced on another site.
We're cutting your tree fee down, Lipa. We're cutting the tree fee down.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
no? Uh-oh.
The first sentence says, added to the property or added elsewhere in the town of Monroe.
Okay. So we would have to somehow get dispensation to be able to do it in the town of Woodbury. Never mind, the town of Woodbury would have to consent. And we don't even know where the town of Woodbury, do we have a sense of where the town of Woodbury is on this?
Village?
Yeah, in the review of this, or if they're gonna ask for anything, or what their expectations are.
Us- Is that,
I'm sorry?
I think
Yes.
what the village was going to be looking
Yes,
to
they
review
were
their,
preparing
their
a
own
So their
findings
own
statement.
finding statement. Okay.
Correct.
So maybe there's a way to leave this a little open. We're still working on the tree amount, right? Is that resolved yet? How many? That
I
something
had
Calla
reached
was
out
looking into?
to Karen to ask her, because some of the trees the applicant noted are dead. That needs to be confirmed by the applicant. And then I did have the most recent letter from the applicant's attorney, and I had reviewed the landscaping plan. I just wasn't sure where the numbers were coming from, so I asked Karen to look at that. We might be reaching out with questions on that, but that fee is still being settled, but that has to be paid before signing of the plans.
Okay. Dennis, do you have any thoughts since we're talking about trees?
On his way.
I think you need to grab, Dennis, that one. Yeah. It's turned on.
Is this going to be under the existing tree law or the new tree law that may be approved within the next month or so?
It's the existing for now.
Yeah.
Because the new hasn't been passed yet.
Yeah.
So we're at the point where there's been a representation of what the mitigation plantings would be, how many trees are being taken to get to a fee, but that has to be checked by Karen or
The,
this point.
the plans I'm familiar with are quite old. I think it was something like 1,600 trees were being taken out, if my memory serves me correctly.
It's around that, I believe.
But I'm assuming that will be, will or has been revised.
Was 1,960 being removed, of which 241 are dead.
Yeah. And then new landscaping, new plantings would offset the
I
1,600.
think so then, the recent submission said that they were gonna be replanting 585, but my math was only getting me to 470, so I think I might have been missing something, or that's just something we have to
Yeah.
clear up.
Right. So that still has to get resolved. That's not resolved yet.
And
But, I mean, the thought of putting some trees in this area seems reasonable.
absolutely.
But I think we'd have to find out what Woodbury, we'd have to communicate with Woodbury where they're headed with all this. If they want the plantings there, and then we have the hurdle of, the law says it's supposed to be planted in the town of Monroe. So,
There are plantings shown on the,
yeah,
to
I don't
Monroe, so-
remember how many are shown on the
I don't
line.
remember how many
Yeah.
either, but
Right.
So,
There's a recent letter, I believe, where the applicant is asking for some dispensation to plant shrubs and bushes, landscaping rather than trees.
right,
So that's
and
something.
I don't know that that's gonna happen.
Count those as tree
Right.
replacement?
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
don't think
that
the
you
law
can.
allows it as written,
As written, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
right,
That might be the discrepancy then in
in the
the
numbers. Yeah. All right, so I think we've gone as far as we can. So Sean, do you have comments? Thank you,
Not more
thank you,
than
Dennis.
that I agree with that there is a viable alternative for the retaining wall as shown. I wanted the board to concentrate on whether or not they thought if the retaining wall was to be constructed, are they comfortable proceeding with some of the renderings that have been presented? Or are those completely out of, essentially, you would not approve a retaining wall that would look like one of those? And I think that's important because if you end up in a scenario where Woodbury does not approve the grading, you would have to approve a retaining wall.
Right. So, from that perspective, I mean, I think some of these don't look like they would be in the town of Monroe. I mean, we tend to have grayish stone, we don't have brown stones, we're not. I think
Yeah.
brownstones is being out west, but that doesn't mean, this is about the pattern. The color could be
Correct.
different.
The color can be changed. There's dyes that they can put into concrete to make it whatever color you want.
Yeah,
I do want to say, though, if a retaining wall does need to be built, if we get to that point, which we don't anticipate, but if we do get to that point, we will have to come back to you for that retaining wall to be
Right, but to that
reviewed and
end,
approved.
the board has to be comfortable that a retaining wall that could look like this is approvable under that architectural review.
does it have to be this shot creek, or can it be,
So there's different alternatives. One of them is soldier pile lags. So imagine I-beams that are driven vertically into the soil with wood slats,
showed that, right?
right? Which,
Which is this,
correct. And if you left it alone, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's alternatives to be able to dress
That's
it
the-
up.
That's the back.
That's the exposed side.
that's what you would, yeah,
If I can suggest that where the retaining wall is, if that gives you an opportunity for planting more trees, then that would help to mask the retaining wall on that side.
Fortunately, there's not enough room. Herb would be located in order.
it's tight.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's gonna be the drive and the wall.
About 18 inches herb in the,
And so this is sheet piling. That's the Shot Creek.
Well, yeah, that's
I mean, the
right.
sheet piling wall doesn't, that's not even what we'd look at, right?
Yes. Piles. If the sheet piles were driven, that's what would be exposed is
Just
the sheet
this.
piles.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Right.
At least from my perspective. Now
Right, so
this-
that, and that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention. Those are essentially the three alternatives
Right.
that have been presented. So if we got to that point, is the board comfortable with that look?
Yeah. And then the third is the Shot Creek with the tie-back walls, and that's where the other, where you're showing patterns. You know, to me, this isn't terrible, it's just not the right color. But it's trying to be made to look like, you know, maybe if it was gray. But it has to look good because it's going to be very exposed. There's nothing that's going to be in front of it. Well, it'll be visible from some places, but the
From the
buildings,
parking lot, but from
Yeah.
the road, it's not really going to be visible because the building's going to block it.
right. So this is probably the one that in color comes the closest to, you know, looking like it might be here, but I'm sure they could do other design patterns too to make it look more natural. So I'm not opposed to the Shot Creek. I just don't think that these necessarily would reflect what looks natural in our area. I think they would have to come up with a pattern that fits.
This is a stamp, yes? They're going to lay in this shotcrete, they're going to blow it, someone's then coming by and just stamping it. Is that
I
not
believe so,
correct?
yeah.
Similar to a stamped concrete
Yeah.
patio.
They call it sculpted though, so I couldn't really tell. I didn't watch the whole video and see how they did it. But I don't know if someone stands there and actually sculpts it out. But I'm guessing that
Too much
it
time.
looks like a stamp.
Just a quick. This would be more along what we might see with a taller face. It's very, the ones that we see in the submission is very flat. It reads very flat, whereas it looks like, yeah, if that's, I don't know if that's real or if that's Shaw Creek. Yeah, so if that's Shot Creek, then I would say, I think that looks good.
Looks compelling.
Yeah, I think that looks more. Obviously, you won't,
Attached the wrong picture.
you wouldn't have the, you should have looked more. You,
Submissions on
oh my goodness. Go out to, oh, that's true, you could put like, right? That's right. You could put like pictures in there.
Girls.
Big happy faces. Smiley faces. Yeah, but there are definitely other alternatives here that I think that we could work with. That's my opinion. Here's another one. That actually looks, yeah. All right, so board members, do you think that if for any reason we had to pursue this option, would it be acceptable because we can find a way to design it that looks good?
I think it depends on whether builders would be open to whatever we would recommend. Sorry, I agree with you that I would like to see it not being a flat wall. And, so it would look more natural in its setting. But they would have to agree to it. I have no doubt that that
Well,
would be a
you
more
would have
expensive
architectural-
option for them.
You would have architectural review, if, this had to come back for amended site plan, you would have architectural review over the design of the wall, so staying within those standards, you'd have input on what it should look like.
It would have to come back and be approved by us. Yeah. I
I'm
think
satisfied with it. your question, I'm satisfied with
You're
it.
satisfied with?
I think we'd be better off.
Massive grade.
Yeah, and great.
Sue, thoughts?
Like the shotcrete, I like the way it looks. It could be, molded in certain, to match the environment, so I'm all for it.
So, in fact, looking at it, we think it may be even a viable option if you wanted to pursue that instead of continuing with Woodbury, but that would take a little time to come up with the design.
Right, well, in the
In
meantime,
the meantime, you're going to work on it. But I think the point is, right now, we have an alternative in the event Woodbury decides not to approve it, and the whole point of this was so that you could move forward and start construction without us having to worry about, is it going to be viable? So Sean, you think they've shown that they can do this?
I agree that they can build the retaining wall and maintain the existing slope during construction so that the grading within Woodbury could also be constructed.
Okay.
Again, are there any safety concerns to doing the wall versus grading?
So if the retaining wall was constructed, a building permit would have to be filed with the building department. That would be reviewed, all the engineering calculations would be reviewed at that time. So from the wall perspective, no. From the grading perspective, the applicant provided a erosion and sediment control matting to prevent erosion of the bank when that's constructed, so that once it's vegetated, ideally the slope would no longer be susceptible to erosion, once it's fully vegetated.
I guess my concern was that if we build this 30-foot wall, if this, even in short spaces, if the land behind it, if we get a lot of wet weather and we were to get a lot of mud sliding down this hill or whatever's coming down this hill, it's putting an unusual amount of force against this wall, and the thoughts of people walking along this wall just concerned me a bit.
So any retaining wall over 30 inches in height requires a 42-inch barrier on top. Typically, that's met by putting a 4-foot chain link fence on the top, so that if somebody is walking behind that, there's the fall protection constructed so that nobody can get close enough to fall off the wall. From the water perspective, drainage would have to be proposed as part of that application to the building department to ensure that the horizontal pressure of the moisture in the ground is not excessive to overturn the wall.
So what's shown here is, so the parking space is 18 feet, right? And it looks like the wall itself is shown here is about maybe 2.5 feet in depth, or would it go up to the property line?
I show it, so it's shown at 24 inches because the letter states, so the soldier piles with lagging, was 16-inch steel beams and 8-inch wood lagging.
Apologize, would you?
So that's the 24. So I showed it at 24 because that was the thickest wall that was proposed as an option. And the wall that I believe you like the best is 16-inch, which is thinner.
That was what I was going to ask,
So if we look at I give two distances on there, whether it's a 24-inch thick wall or a 16-inch thick wall.
So we have we're not going to get something undulating, obviously, because it's a straight wall.
That's correct.
But you could put something like that first one we looked at. That was, what was it?
That more natural
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it was like two pieces. I don't know if it was.
I believe the shotcrete is just more or less a fascia on the wall, so they could
Right.
make it thicker to try to create more of a curvature within the wall.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering. So if you look at this, which I think looks really, that looks great and really natural, is there enough space in that too to get at least some undulation?
I don't think it's going to be as extreme as that, but
Yeah.
I believe that they could add some,
Some
like
depth.
I said, some depth to it, yeah.
And if you go back to the map, so it's not right up against the property line, but is that because you need to tie it back into the hill? Or could you make it a little?
That's because I like to leave space wherever I can, whenever I can.
So maybe there's a little wiggle room.
Right, there's a little more.
Maybe, okay.
3 or 4 feet.
Because if I measure from the property
6 inches.
line,
There's-
from the
well,
property
probably
line
a foot.
to the curb might be about like 4.5 feet.
Right,
Okay,
right,
so there may be some little bit of wiggle room.
right.
Okay,
Foot, foot and a half.
okay. Hey, that's still,
Right.
okay. Ashley?
I did prepare a draft resolution for approving the phased grading plan.
All right, so I think we're going to move forward with, and we had talked about amending the, well, is this an amendment or is this an approval?
So this is similar to what you did for the lighting plan. So you had your amended resolution that was approved. A condition of that required you to approve the phased grading plan. So this is a separate approval of just that plan.
Okay. So, this is the resolution approving the phased grading plan for Monroe Ninninger LLC, dated February 13th, 2025. Whereas Monroe Ninninger LLC, the applicant, you have applied for approval of a site plan, issuance of a special use permit, and local wetlands disturbance permit. That's just giving an overview of the project. And then, following completion of review under seeker and the adoption of a seeker finding statement, we issued conditional approval of the resolution approving the project. And that approval resolution required that we satisfy various conditions, which include that the applicant has to get written approval from the Village Woodbury Planning Board for clearing and grading. And then whereas on November 26, 2024, applicant requested that the approval resolution be amended to allow the applicant to obtain a building permit to construct a foundation and structural steel which is integral to the site grading prior to getting their approval from the Village Woodbury Planning Board. And we amended our conditional approval, and it requires the applicant to obtain written approval from the Village of Woodbury Planning Board for clearing and grading prior to the issuance of a building permit, other than a permit for construction of the foundation and structural steel, which is integral to the site grading. And in conjunction with the change in that timing, it required us to approve a phasing plan for the site grading that will be incorporated into the plan set, which shall be satisfactory to the planning board engineer and identify temporary grading along the Village of Woodbury boundary that allows future grading within the Village of Woodbury as currently proposed and does not preclude the construction of retaining walls along the property's contiguous boundary within the Village of Woodbury to allow the applicant to proceed prior to obtaining the necessary approvals. Whereas the applicant has submitted phase grading plan, last revised January 29th, 2025. And you also submitted a plan for proposed retaining wall alternative, which we took a look at, demonstrating for informational purposes the feasibility of constructing a retaining wall in the available space, together with correspondence from Pathway Structural Engineering, which outlines the 3 possible methods for constructing such retaining wall. Now therefore be it resolved, we approve the phase grading plan for Village of Woodbury, Town of Woodbury line. Approval is limited to approval of the phase grading plan only. That'll be incorporated into the final plan. It's been reviewed for informational purposes only, and it's not being
The
approved.
retaining wall plan has been,
The retaining wall, and no retaining wall should be constructed without amended site plan approval. And then the event the applicant is unable to secure approval from the Village of Woodbury Planning Board, the applicant must return to us for review and approval of an amended site plan, which would include the evaluation and design of the proposed retaining wall. So, in terms of maybe suggested revisions, it says it outlines three possible methods for constructing such a retaining wall, but I think the only one that we think would be viable, at least from an architectural perspective, that's shown, is the Shot Creek. Does it matter that we say something to that effect? To reflect that we find specifically the Shot Creek use, or if necessary,
Shot
use of
Creek.
Shot Creek could.
I think I'd be, just to give you more, discretion in the event they do have to come, because there might be something better than, the Shaw Creek that you come across. I wouldn't want to cabin you into kind of
Shaw
giving
Creek
any type of
looking-
preliminary approval to that, because you're really just right now saying that it's possible, or
Yeah.
that they showed it was possible.
I think, I don't want to leave, I guess I didn't want to leave it that open, and which outlines three possible methods for constructing such a retaining wall without the need to construct any improvements or
That you
grading.
find the,
Of which, the planning board finds Shot Creek might be particularly suited of the option shown.
Excuse me, can I safely assume that there are other companies besides Shotcrete that make the exact same type or looking retaining wall, and they're just one company of many that do such a thing?
I think shotcrete is a broad term.
Bless you.
Like a concrete block
Concrete,
wall.
yeah, concrete.
There's many companies that do shotcrete.
So that's just the
Shotcrete is
design.
Shotcrete is a
It's not-
method of applying concrete.
Right.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's like sprayed on, like
No, I mean, I get it conceptually, I just didn't realize that method was, for everybody, was called shotcrete. I thought it was
It
just
is.
called stamped concrete. Learn something new.
yeah, it's the way it's applied.
Okay, thanks.
Was there anything else we think we might want to add here? I felt like there's one other thing, of course, I can't remember.
I'll add another whereas clause after that, saying, whereas of the three retaining wall options presented, the planning board finds that the Shot Creek alternative is a viable option from an architectural review perspective.
I don't want it to be left, we found that one in particular, seems like it's viable, because we really didn't, I don't think, like the other two in terms of what it would look like. Else we might want to add to the? Oh,
Add the date that's blank there. I was going to insert just the date of the plans that were identified in your amended resolution. That's August 29th, 2024. I know they've made a new submission that Sean's been reviewing for final signature, but I figured it's safe to use that August date.
do the trees a separate issue, so we don't need to add anything to this related to the trees? Tree planting, et cetera, that's just going to be addressed with the Village of Woodbury and their approvals?
Oh, anything that they would do on the village property? Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be, I mean, you could submit comments to the village the village planning board, if you wanted to suggest anything.
Well, it gets to this whole notion of tree plantings and where they may occur, and that they could occur in that area. Maybe for informational purposes, we could send that to them. But I think we should look at the landscape plan, because for all I know, maybe there's a lot of trees being proposed and we can't put any more. I don't recall. But I think what we should do after this approval and meeting is look at the landscape plan, look at that area. If it looks like more trees could be accommodated, and if somehow we could allow it, I know.
allow it to be counted
Yeah.
from your tree fee. So
Yeah.
I think it would be, if the applicant wants to do it or the village might, be requiring it on their own end.
All right, so that's a separate matter, so we'll tackle that separately. So with that, would someone please make a motion that we approve this resolution approving the phase grading plan for Monroe Nininger LLC, subject to the revision that our attorney made?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
So that was Pat and Lou.
Ed Shea,
Aye.
Bonnie Francis,
Aye.
Bob Garstack,
Aye.
Aye.
That the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We done?
Pull your building permits. Do you have more tonight?
No, I don't. Just making sure. I didn't want to get up.
Yeah, no, I think you're good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Folks, you guys show up to be concerned. Do you have any concerns of any of the things we've been discussing here tonight you'd like to bring up?
They're here for Lanzaleva.
Yeah.
Specifically,
have to
Can
be
you
on the
please come
microphone.
up to the mic?
Hate to have you sitting here and not have your 2 cents put in.
The only question on the Lanzaleva was the one property, depending on which layout was getting proposed. The one that was the private driveway on Belmont, depending on the road frontage required, if it's based off of Rye Hill road frontage or Belmont Drive road frontage being,
let me bring it up because I'm not
Yeah.
visualizing this. Do you want me to bring up the conventional plan?
I forget which
Oh,
one it
email.
was.
Was it that one?
Yeah, so when you're looking at the bottom left proposed lot,
Oh, this one?
yes.
Okay.
The private driveway that's attached.
Mm-hmm.
Does the road frontage go based off of Rye Hill or based off of the private driveway? Being that private driveway is less than 20 feet from the house?
So they're showing that they have frontage on Rye Hill Road.
Yeah.
How they get access is a different story, but the lot itself is probably going to the right-of-way of Rye Hill Road. Yep. Yep. It shows that the lot's being created and that your driveway now extends through their property, right?
Through the existing house on the top of the mountain, where the private road is.
Isn't this how you get access right now to the lot?
To our lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But that's in our deed.
correct. So you have a right of access over their property. But I don't think that keeps them from not being able to develop the property. The planning board would have to ensure that there's an appropriate agreement.
I think for that option, they're saying propose, I think, easement revision, which you'd have to, of course, they'd have to work that out with you in
And
order
so-
to amend that driveway easement.
Yeah, I was trying to get your attention, but we had to move on before. So the cluster plan is an entirely different arrangement which we can consider. And that one right now shows that nothing would be on that property.
And what
And
would
all of these would be situated up at the top of the hill.
and what would happen with the open area?
It just remains
Plan.
open. There's a conservation easement, a deed
Is that
restriction.
protected where they won't decide to
They're not allowed to do
build it
anything.
later on?
There's conservation easements placed on it,
So
and it's enforced.
the only thing that I heard, again, I didn't want to interrupt previously, I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful that you're letting us speak. The-
Is Matthew
Matthew.
and Drizzy?
And I'm Michael Andrizzi. The cluster plan would benefit us, that, keep it as far away as possible.
Right.
But again, what I brought up was, you never mentioned the detention pond. So they took 1 or 2 homes, but if you put all those cluster homes right there, where's that water going?
Well,
Again,
that's definitely not what they're showing on the plan. And I think on
They
our
removed it,
plans,
and
we
they said-
normally need to, in the conventional, still see whatever they're gonna propose for
It's not neither one, and they use
the
those.
storage basin, I think.
Well, they're stating that most of their treatment can be obtained via the existing stormwater basin to the right of that page, about center right.
But the previous plan
Right there.
required it, and suddenly now, we took
So
one
that-
home away, so now we don't need it? That's,
The other
new
thing
houses
is,
are on the
the
wrong
other thing
side of
is
the
that
house.
the stormwater regulations on a residential subdivision, if the total impervious area is 25% or less than the overall property, they only need to prepare erosion and sediment control plan, so they do not need to detain or treat the water.
but-
So
but if
they
you're
may
thinking-
not need it for this side over here. Okay.
If you are removing half the whole mountain, yeah, that's what you brought up, everybody here was bringing up,
Mm-hmm.
the mountain, and can you do this, and you have gravity. When you remove all the trees from that side of the mountain, the water's gotta go somewhere, and you're still putting homes, and you're putting driveways and pools and things like that, so where's the water going?
Well-
And Jeff brought it up previously, it's gotta be going somewhere, and it was required on the previous,
Unfortunately, we haven't gotten to the grading.
I know, but I just
yet.
wanna make sure I'm not
Yeah.
forgotten, I heard him.
Well, it's gonna come down to, so let's say for argument's sake, they can't prove the lot, so then they're down to 4.
Right.
And then they may only, in the end, have 2 houses that are on that side of the ridge. It may not be, because that other stormwater basement's on the other side of the ridge.
Right.
So, but let's say there's a couple houses on this side, that may not be so much impervious surface that they have to put a drainage basin in by law, by New York State law.
And we would ensure that the roof leaders and drainage are conveyed away from and collected properly, so that it's not an issue.
So this gentleman brought it up, that's why I'm gonna bring it up. He said, well, there was deals made previously, and there was a lot of negative impact, but that's the same when you guys keep bringing up Belmont Drive, that's like a knife in me, because there was deals made that Belmont Drive would not be used. And all of a sudden you keep saying, oh, well, you just use Belmont, and then at one point you brought up,
Well, right
Boyle
now,
Court.
the cluster plan doesn't, so ultimately, when it comes to the length of the roads, there are regulations. And it's really input that we need from the highway superintendent. And again, there's a fire code that we have to adhere to. So what the length of the road may be, or if we make it longer, is in part based on other factors beyond us. But, we're well aware of concerns with drainage. We're well aware of concerns about, having to share drives. At least these 2 options are not showing, a road coming up from Rye Hill Road. And I don't think for this number of houses, we're looking to necessarily build something coming up from Rye Hill. I think the only question going forward is, will there be one house possibly coming off of your shared drive? And then we still have to figure out the drainage, but again, that may be more about grading and directing than necessarily detention ponds. So,
Correct.
but this is still so preliminary, they have to still prove that they can even do 5 lots. And
Right,
that's with the input of the highway
you
super.
brought up that lot number 2 was an issue, that might come up.
Right, it may come, they may redesign it and it may work, or the highway superintendent may
It's
say
just
this is
that
okay.
Mr. Leave is extremely difficult. I can't even repave my driveway, and I'm trying to get that done with the amount of potholes and, again, the erosion that's occurring. I can't even get him to agree to that, even when I offered to pay for the whole thing, although the original agreement was he was supposed to pay for it. So,
I mean, we can't get involved in,
no, I understand that.
private matters.
What was, part of it was, he's trying to get some sort of agreement between us, because at the time when I bought the house, there was no, when you have more than one neighbor share a driveway, you're supposed to try to get
Agreement.
an agreement, and we
Have
never
an
got
agreement?
that.
Maintenance agreement.
So I don't want something rammed down my throat,
Yeah.
And again,
Oh,
he
The
brought,
cluster doesn't propose any driveway, any additional driveway, and actually eliminates the
which
other
would be
driveway
great.
off
Right,
of yours.
that would be beneficial
Yeah.
to us. The only thing that you also brought up, I don't want to be, again, because this gentleman's saying, well, we made deals, that there is a paper road, and he kind of, you said you can't find it, you said it didn't exist. There's definitely a paper road, which we don't want to open the can of worms, but he said that there were deals made, so we're going to stay away from that. But again, if
I
those
think-
deals were made
I think
between
we-
Jean Drive,
We know that, we
Yeah,
know that,
Stevens
because
Court.
that's actually showing up, I think, on the tax maps.
right, but
Yeah.
originally you were saying, oh, I think it looks like it's paper locked or whatever, but there's definitely a road going from Stevens
Right,
to High Ridge.
right,
And
which
of
I
course,
doubt
they
will
didn't-
ever
Nobody
happen.
liked that on High Ridge, and they were trying to keep people from cutting into their
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
But-
I
but-
don't anticipate that the
It's not
town
gonna
is going to go forward and try and create
But then
that
there was a
connection.
piece that said that you might be able to do a loop, and there was a piece that you kept saying, well, why are we not doing that? And they
Well,
tried
we're
to-
talking about this. This was the original loop,
Right,
this. And then, but I think when it was approved, it was just a longer cul-de-sac. So I don't even know why, and it said this could be done in the future, but why, at that point? I didn't
Public hearing
understand.
comments. Public hearing, my understanding, why they
Okay.
did not do that.
Yeah.
right, because
So,
everybody's trying to keep green
because
as
it
much
was
as green
really-
as possible.
it was really supposed to go all the way through, and because of public comments,
Right. And
they
that's what
decided
I'm agreeing.
to,
And
do the
whole,
cul-de-sac.
everybody was saying, oh, don't worry, we're going to approve Feeney, we're going to approve Feeney, we're going
Yeah.
to approve Feeney, and then,
yeah.
so,
Well, right, because that was part of that other road, was then you could connect Feeney into it, so. I mean,
Alright.
the planning board at the time had to weigh and balance, I'm sure, proper planning and connections for fire, for houses, for neighborhoods, but at the same time, people living there already who don't want the connections
So
and
what
don't want the
what
traffic.
I'm afraid of is where people do things knowing they're doing it wrong and then ask for forgiveness, wink, wink, later on. You put a larger sewer pipe in or water pipe in, and then, oh, gee, we put a 24-inch instead of an 18-inch.
Yeah.
Or you cut all the trees like on Rye Hill Road before the caterpillars or whatever they were trying to save, or the frogs. And then it's been an eyesore for all the years because that project fell through. But they made sure they cut it, clear cut it, and that's what I'm afraid of. I don't want to come home after
they-
a weekend and see
right.
everything's clear cutted, and then,
They had approvals, and at that point, since they had finished the environmental review process, and there's restrictions on when you can cut trees, they cut the trees, and now here we are. But, a couple thoughts. We're in the secret process, so they can't be altering or cutting anything right now. They're not allowed to. Number two, we're here, you see us deliberating. And number three, we have our engineers who go out and do the inspections and see what's being constructed to ensure that it's meeting standards, so that it's not a pipe being put in. So I think we're very diligent as a board, and we appreciate that you come to these meetings, because I know it's important. And so you could see, there's now an alternative that wouldn't have houses, near you. But we have to weigh and balance it for the whole neighborhood,
I understand that.
and we'll figure it out.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, next item on the agenda is Raywood Drive? No, sorry, Walmart. Walmart parking. I had. First one's Walmart, first is Walmart parking, and then the new is Walmart expansion.
Yes,
So.
I'm here for both. I'm
You're here for both?
yes.
Okay. So why don't you introduce yourself and then let us know what's happening with Walmart parking?
My name is Jeremy Eanes. I'm with Dewberry Engineers, representing Walmart.
Speak up, please.
My name is Jeremy Eanes. I'm with Dewberry Engineers, and I'm representing Walmart in this matter. For the first project, the Walmart parking is what it's called. Walmart is proposing 54 total storage containers to be in their parking lot for the holiday seasonal season. 50 of those containers would be 20 feet long, and 4 would be 53 feet long. We've been here before. This was originally proposed in 2023, I believe.
You haven't resubmitted?
Yes, we have resubmitted something. It was a long break between that because Walmart originally put this project on hold, so we were not acting on it. But in 2024, they restarted the process for this and the building expansion, which we'll get to later.
How many containers did you say?
54 total would be the maximum.
54 containers?
Correct. That's not necessarily exactly how many that would be out there. They're just trying to be conservative. And like I said, this is mainly for the seasonal season when all the Christmas decorations and additional products that they sell during the season are delivered to the store. And they don't have room to put it all in the store at one time, so it's stored on the lot in the storage containers. Yeah.
Just seems like 50 seems a little.
Oh, I agree. It is a lot. But I believe it only reduces, well, not only, but it reduces the total.
The time period?
The time period would be around September through the end of the year.
This is saying November 1 to January 15.
Okay, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever's in the narrative that we provided.
Yeah, because we don't want to see it suddenly just being containers year-round. This is being done for the holiday season.
Correct.
So whomever represented Walmart previously, I recall that we talked about how Walmart and some of the other, big box stores are selling product that is not necessarily seasonal, and we question whether it was being stored in these containers, almost like a little mini Amazon, but in containers. And these containers are really supposed to only be for storage purposes for the holiday season. That's a request. So one of my comments is, why that number? Is that really what you need for the holiday season? That number, because that's a lot. And Target has how many for the season?
3.
3. So 50 compared to 3 doesn't seem to be, from my perspective, just seasonal. So I'd like to know why that number.
Would we have an inventory of what's going to be in these containers?
In terms of the inventory, they've let us know. Let's see.
Yes?
Walmart has communicated to us Dewberry, the engineers, that it's just seasonal items such as toys, Christmas decor, bikes, etc., and that it is against Walmart store policy to store dangerous items such as guns, chemicals, bullets, food, etc., in these containers. That's all that I know personally about what's going to be in the containers themselves. In terms of the number, although 54 containers are proposed as part of this permit request, a total of 35 containers were used during the 2023 holiday season. Walmart anticipates the use of storage containers to be long-term use over the years, varying in number of containers throughout the year and peaking during the holiday season. So yes, it does seem it will be year-round, but peaking during the holiday season.
So they're going to be there year-round.
Correct.
So these are not seasonal. This is what I meant. This is the model of storing other product from, so if you go to the Walmart site and you want to buy something, sometimes it's not there. It's actually coming from a third-party purveyor. So it's possible that some of that's what's being stored there, but
You mean if you go to the site online?
it's almost like an Amazon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No question.
Yeah. So,
I think one comment, Sean and I had talked about this earlier, is that I think Ben had determined for the Target application that those storage units were accessory to the retail use. I think given the number, it's a lot more than the 3 proposed for Target. I think we should ask Ben for a determination as to whether, it's still allowed as an accessory to the retail use, or if it's something different.
and the total number, is that including the ones that are proposed in the village?
Yes, that
or
is
in
correct.
Woodbury?
Yes.
Offhand, how?
I believe it was 6 that spilled over into the village of Woodbury.
Just over here in this little corner?
Yes, that's it.
Because they really shouldn't be shown on our map, or they should be shown differently, because we can't approve them. So somehow on this map, these either have to go away or shown differently
Okay.
in a different color, because we don't approve them, so we don't want to make it appear to our neighbors that we're approving stuff on their side of the line.
I think it's good to show them in some way, because I mean, from a seeker perspective, you're gonna be likely
Yeah.
the lead agency, so you'll, be considering all of them, so to show where they are, but to make it clear maybe that those are gonna be subject to, approval by the village of Woodbury. And I think it might be that there's one that's kind of split between the village and the town. I think that should probably be avoided.
Yeah, this one of them. If it's split line, it shouldn't be there. We don't want them split. It's just going to complicate things, so it should just not have any trailers located along the split line. The homes.
Yes.
Sorry, that's all behind the stores?
Yeah, it's all behind and a little to the side near the tire.
And fronting to the condos back there,
Yes, I believe
homes,
the
yeah.
houses or condos, whatever they are. And I believe those houses or condos are in the Harriman, not in Woodbury.
Yeah, I think we have to look at the map, because I'm not sure if it's Woodbury or if it's Harriman. I think it's Harriman, right?
Sorry, I think it's Harriman.
I think it's Harriman too.
Yeah. Well, let's see here.
And in
Not sure
terms
I'm
of the
gonna be wrong.
placement of the containers, there may be even a way to just eliminate placing the containers in the village of Woodbury altogether and have them all in the town of Monroe.
We just had this discussion with someone who thought that all these properties were owned by RDM, but Walmart, Home Depot, I think they're on their own lots, owned by Walmart and Home Depot, et cetera. Okay, so here we're talking about, oh, now what is in here now? What is, this isn't necessarily, I don't know if this is a current map.
So that area, that is a outdoor storage area for Walmart. That's permanent. That's not parking or anything.
Okay, and then as we come around here, is this where the storage is going?
Correct.
So you had the 6 or so, or however many here, I guess, and then looping it around this way.
Correct.
And what's the grade? This is going uphill, right? This is the Target and the Pet Smart and
Yes.
those other stores, right? Okay, so this is the big hill going up to it. So it's at the base of the hill where those would be located. So I would agree that we need to ask. So here's what we need to know to then be able to ask the building inspector. Is it accessory to Walmart? Let's say it's third-party storage, third-party purveyors. So is that accessory to then a Walmart center? You know what I'm saying? If it's,
Technically not Walmart's product, so can it be accessory to the Walmart?
right, but
Store.
Have to
it's
be
part of
accessory
their,
to Walmart retail.
right.
So if it's storing things for, say, Target, I don't know that would be.
So they may, let's say,
Middleman.
yeah, a middleman for some of the transactions. And so if that's what's being stored in these containers, is that then really accessory? Whereas Target truly, I think, was seasonal. That's why they only have 3 trailers. But this is something different. And so from my perspective, we really need to have more information on what is being stored here. So I appreciate that they're not doing hazardous waste and they're not doing guns, et cetera. But I still want to know, how does this relate? Because it's not seasonal. This is year-round, and at some
Yeah,
point,
why is it year-round if it's being called seasonal?
well, at some point it begs a question, why do you not just expand the store to put this stuff in the store? because we don't collect taxes off of storage containers. Right? And so, right, exactly.
It's a low-cost way of, storage.
Yeah,
Very low cost.
very low cost.
Poses more of an issue for us because those containers are not, they don't have, what am I trying to say? They don't have a fire suppression systems out there, so they're pulling on our resources. If, God forbid, there's a fire in one, it's going to spread to all of them, and that's using us, and we're not getting the tax dollars from it that, to support all of that. But you take these 50-something containers all together and you do the square footage, add that to that, and then if we have to hire another couple firemen, then we can't afford to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a model that it's the reality of the retail sales environment right now. But do we want to endorse having all this outdoor storage that's going to be permanent?
I don't.
So I think we need more information because we don't know what's going into all of those storage containers. We kind of know what is in a Walmart center, or you can get access to it, but here everything's contained individually. Plus there then becomes a security issue as well. We don't have police. Right. Only state police. Right.
Waste that resource on this.
Second Walmart application, which you really are going to be reviewing, together with this one in terms of seeker, it is proposing an expansion. So whether that, expansion can be modified to incorporate, the additional storage space that's being sought here.
And is that, we'll get into it, but is that expansion specifically for this purpose, or is it for other purposes?
I mean, they're proposing them both, so I assume it's a different purpose.
Yeah, but we'll need to know that too. So you're representing them for that. Sean, you have comments on this one?
One of the main comments was this is going to impinge some of the parking that was already approved. The parking calculation that was provided is pursuant to Woodbury's code. Monroe's is actually a little bit more strict, one space for 150 square feet versus one that's in Woodbury. So that affects the parking calculation kind of significantly. And it wasn't clear how many spots are existing to determine whether or not, to verify the number that you're representing, and secondly, you're reducing an already deficient number of parking spots. So we have to understand, number one, we have to verify that the number of spots that you're saying are there, and secondly, find out if the board can waive those number of spots or if a variance is needed.
I have comments
copy?
from MHE. Yeah. Not from today, no.
So last time I had brought up the residential dwellings to the back and potential noise and/or screening. The applicant responded to that with the storage containers will only be delivered and taken away from the site during the hours of 8 and 6 p.m. as to not disturb the residential properties. In my opinion, that didn't really address the question because it doesn't talk about when they're in operation and the noise and/or screening when they're there. Secondly, I guess we already dwelled on the fact that it's a little bit more than seasonal. Their narrative represents November 1st to January 15th, but it sounds like they're going to be there all year round. So the board had previously suggested a more long-term solution, which, again, we talked about that tonight. That was it.
Ashley?
So as far as seeker goes, this would likely be an unlisted action that you would consider together with the building expansion application. So I would ask that the applicant submit a revised EAF that addresses both together. In that EAF, make sure the description identifies the correct number and size of storage containers. So your prior EAF had said, I think it was 440-foot instead of 453-foot. And give the total square footage and total parking that's going to be eliminated in that EAF narrative. And then also question 2 of the EAF needs to indicate, or I'm sorry, question 1 of the EAF needs to indicate the other agency approvals that are required. So Village of Woodbury Planning Board, I think the Orange County DPW, and possibly the ZBA if parking variance is going to be needed. The latest submission indicated you had provided a revised narrative, but that wasn't part of your submission, so it wasn't received.
It should have been.
Your August 28th, 24 narrative had said again that there was 4 40-foot trailers, but the plan shows that those are 4 53-foot trailers, so to make sure that's consistent. I know the planning board talked about the type of information it would be looking for in that narrative as far as what's being stored in there, the time frame. If you could also identify the square footage for each type of container and then the total square footage of all the containers that are proposed. And we talked about clarifying the number that are, that's in Woodbury, if you're still going to be proposing those or if you're going to be relocating them to the town. Some of the application have the wrong SBL. The GML 809 disclosure didn't have the correct application checked off, and you also need an owner's endorsement that's submitted, that's signed by the owner LLC, that's the FBG Wall LLC. So, and I could send Noreen these comments that she could share with you just to make sure you have the updated paperwork in place. The board does have architectural review, so I know there's not much to review with a storage container, but get an idea of what it'll look like. Going to require referral to the Orange County Planning Department under GML.
So we need the short EAF before we can do anything to begin with.
Could classify the action as unlisted. I mean, it's not going to be more than 10 acres. It's going to be unlisted.
So then do that, and then once we receive it, we'll send it?
Yes. To approve a motion to classify the Walmart storage containers and Walmart building expansion applications as unlisted, and declare your intent to be lead agency.
So are we going to then do both of the projects as one application approval process?
Can't separate.
Right.
I don't know what benefit there is from having 2 separate plans.
Yeah, I think from the environmental perspective, we can do it. Okay. So I'll make a motion that we declare our intent to be lead agency for the proposed Walmart storage container application and its building expansion, subject to receiving an adequate short environmental assessment form. And we ask that our attorney put the notice of intent submission together for us. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Bonnie Franson.
Aye.
Bob Garstack.
Aye.
Lou Rivera.
Aye.
All right, so
And a motion to classify the action, which would include both applications, as unlisted under seeker.
Oh, I thought I said unlisted. So we'll classify this action as an unlisted action. May I have a second?
Second.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Bonnie Franson.
Aye.
Garstack.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so I'm looking at this imagery from Google. Granted, it's older, but it's showing box breakdown out here in the parking lot, and I suspect that's not allowed. And the reason I bring it up, if it is still happening, is that it's where your storage containers are proposed.
Yeah, that's the bale and pallet storage, and I think that's supposed to be within that fenced area that you see there, but
But instead you have
there must have
pallets
been an
there.
overflow. and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at this, because we're looking at this holistically, these can't be hanging out here. They need to be in a fenced area. So you're considering storage containers, but you need space to be able to enclose all of this. Same thing, you have the pallets here. You have a couple of lifts, I guess. And then I want to find out whether the town ever approved, these look like propane? Is that what that is?
Looks like it, right? Looks
Doesn't it look like
propane
those
tanks.
propane?
They are protected by bollards, so I'm sure it,
Right.
It might be for the forklifts.
You think so? They,
I think he's
Typically,
right. I think he could be right, yeah.
Typically, the forklifts are powered by propane.
so I just like to see if they got this approved, because we can do cleanups if this wasn't approved.
Right. Yeah, don't disagree. I'm just saying I don't think it's for retail. I think it's for the
For
forklifts.
the
Right.
forklifts, okay. Yeah, I don't know what you sell, for instance, over by the garden center, if you then, barbecues and everything else, and then you happen to also bring those forward, I don't know. So, I think we need some information on that. So, you're proposing to put the storage containers back up against the parking in here, right?
yes.
And then over here, it would also be in this location.
Correct.
And then you have this drive aisle, and you're proposing to put them in this parking area.
Correct.
And then they don't go any further than that. They don't go beyond this.
Correct.
Is that the Woodbury section you just pointed at?
Yeah, I think there's like a piece in here that's Woodbury, because the line is coming kind of like that. Because this, I believe, is in Woodbury, Harriman, whatever it is. And that's your mulch, that's your
Yeah, it would be outdoor garden
outdoor
center
storage?
storage.
Okay. Although, in this image,
Yeah, it seems to be some containers in there as well.
where they sell containers. So, it's funny, because this is May 2023. Let's see what happens. That's August 2018. So it seems like these containers move around. And maybe they had some of the stuff in it, I don't know.
And the 54 number, I'll get clarification if that's the total for the whole year or if that's the maximum at one time.
Yeah, I think we just need to know, and again, the storage and what the purpose of that storage is. This is the parking that's up against the housing. So you can see there's a house right in there. There is some vegetation here already, but it's possible we might want to supplement it.
Well, that looks like some kind of a wall back there, no?
Was it a wall or a
It
fence?
looked like a wall.
I believe there's a fence all along the.
Yeah, I think
the
there's a
back.
fence surrounding that housing development. Oops, I'm sorry. See right here?
I see, yeah, back there?
Yeah, I think that's a fence that goes around the development. But we can look into that. All right, so I think that's all we can do for now, right? For this storage container part of it. So let's move on to the expansion. And
Want to combine the two accounts that are now set up into one
as
project?
one escrow? It's basically one applicant, right? It's the same
Yeah.
applicant for both?
Correct.
We should probably ask them. We don't know whether they have a reason for separating them.
Right, they did in the beginning, so I just want
I think originally the containers were proposed before the expansion, so.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, if they're okay with it, they can be, but, all right, so, next item. I don't know if I have a storage container, or, do you have an expansion exhibit? That from 116, the packet?
It's the same comments as 116 because they didn't show up at the last meeting.
Okay,
So I just reissued it for tonight.
okay. I'm trying to find it, I don't have a plan in this. When did it first come in? Was it a while ago?
December.
December? I have your comments. Oh, December, here we go. So it came in here. All right. Is this it here?
That's
All
it,
right.
yeah.
Do you want to give us an overview of what's going on?
Speak up, please.
So this is a proposed building expansion on the existing Walmart of 4,402 square feet. This expansion will mainly be used for online grocery pickup, storage, and staging. This project also proposes to convert some existing parking adjacent to the proposed expansion to additional pickup parking. I believe the increase is, so there's existing 14 pickup parking spaces there currently, and we're proposing 45 total.
Proposing what?
45 total pickup parking spaces. And that's the online grocery pickup where you go, you drive up, and they bring your groceries out to you. This project also proposes additional striping and signage updates along the building frontage road to increase safety and maneuverability for pedestrians.
So if you look at this image that's on the screen, you're showing pickup, pickup, pickup.
Yeah, that's for the cars that come into the parking lot, just so they know exactly where to drive to get to the pickup area.
So there'll be signage there, is that what that is?
Yes,
So this is proposed signage,
correct.
okay.
Directing people to the area that you were showing.
Yes,
And so this is signage also?
yes.
I think the majority of those signs on the bottom there are in the village of Woodbury.
Okay.
So, again, village approval would be.
And so then this is the building expansion in here,
Yes.
and what is going on in terms of, did you say you're expanding where the pickup area is?
Yes, so
So that's the next sheet?
there's multiple sheets. If you go to one more sheet.
This one?
Yes. So the left view is existing and the right is proposed.
And so essentially you put the poles or you put the signage up that says pickup?
Right.
Okay. Is this a trend that there are more people that are looking to do this?
Definitely, yeah. They mainly need more pickup parking spots because there's more people that want to use the service than they can actually provide at this point. And that's for most Walmarts. People love the program because they don't have to get out of their cars and go in the store. They're only there at the store for like 10 minutes, opposed to parking and going in for 30 minutes to an hour grocery shopping. So that's the main reason we think it's justified to reduce the parking for this use, because there's going to be less people going actually in the store. They're just going to be on the site for 10 minutes.
I think the usage of the parking, it's still parking, but the question is how many additional spaces are required from the building expansion? So, Sean, you have comments?
Yes.
Okay.
To that end, the applicant provided a parking calculation that, again, was utilizing the Village of Woodbury's requirements, so the town of Monroe drives the parking requirement up. We need to look at that with the storage container to understand if a variance is needed or if the planning board can waive the requested number of parking spots to be reduced. The expansion is proposed over an existing sewer line with a grease interceptor, and that grease interceptor is proposed to be moved. The applicant should work with the Orange County Sewer District, number one, as to how the sewer district would like that to be located and review the design calculations for the grease interceptor as they're the owner of the sewer. As Ashley had noted, most of that signage, I believe, that's proposed is within the village of Woodbury. I didn't see the Woodbury line on, Town of Monroe Woodbury line on the plan. That should be added as well. There should be a plan that identifies where the seal coating and restriping is going to be. It wasn't clear to me where the limits of the seal coating and striping is, where it's going to be restriped and what's going to remain. I had a couple comments on the handicap parking stall. One of the sheets included some SWIP signage installation. It wasn't clear to me how much disturbance, or if the disturbance was going to be over an acre, and whether or not a SWIP would be required. So I'll ask you to drill down on that.
No, the total just land disturbance is 0.42 acres.
I didn't think it met the requirement, but there was a number of details related to SWIPs, so. I had a couple of comments on the lighting and some of the light poles that are going to be relocated. Mostly technical. Nothing else that will.
Ashley?
Already started the seeker process with the last application. This also does need to be referred to the Orange County Planning Department.
I don't think we're there yet.
No. Plan indicates that the site currently has non-conforming lot coverage. It says 75.5%, where max allowed is 75%. So I just wanted to confirm that and figure out how that came to be. I don't know. I don't believe there was previously a variance for the property, so it might be that the calculation's not accurate, but that's something that.
I don't believe that's accurate. From what I've shown, the existing is 58.7% lot coverage, and an additional 4,000 square feet is not going to increase it by 20%.
What was the purpose behind it? One more time.
The expansion itself is for exclusively the online grocery pickup, staging, and storage. So when they go out in the store and they shop for you.
How many square feet?
4,400.
So it's for the entire store. It's not for the grocery area. It's just pickup area
Yes, just
for whatever anybody buys in the store.
Correct.
Okay.
Before they bring it out to the cars.
So they're not putting refrigeration or anything in that space?
There is refrigeration for the refrigerated groceries that.
So for people who get the groceries?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you heard, there's going to be refrigeration in there for people who pick up groceries, produce, as opposed to, but that pickup area is for anything that's bought in the store, but it will include
Just
groceries. Yeah.
And all of that will be shown with the building permit. The architect submits that, not us.
But I think it would be important, to include where the refrigeration units are going to be, if they're not roof mounted.
Okay. We can make a comment to show that. We were just acting as this was the site plan, not a building.
So we have architectural review authority, so we're going to need to see some elevations of what this looks like.
Okay.
But I think ground mounted, that equipment, it could impede some of the fire access lane or, how cars approach the building.
Now, something, were you done, Ashley? Sorry.
That's okay. So I think the lot coverage question, I think we have to look at the findings and see whether that 58% that you noted, or if it's the 75.5 that's just in the town that applies. Then showed you were adding pervious area. Is that just lawn or?
Yeah, it would just be grass lawn area.
And that is it for now.
Board members, questions? Want me to change?
No, so this expansion is due to the online presence. It's a new, has that grown sales? Do you know anything about the sales aspect of it? Is it?
I don't know.
Obviously, it should be booming because they're expanding the section.
Right, it's being utilized a lot, and most of the Walmarts that we're working on now, they're adding onto the building to make room for the grocery pickup aspect.
I know I'm a wholesaler myself, so I fully understand what's going on. It's a big thing now, not only in Walmart, but also in Target and all the other stores, Stop and Shop, ShopRite. I don't have any further.
They're doing more than retail.
Huh?
They're doing more than retail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big component, they want to grow it. And, this is the way of doing it. The right way of doing it, actually, right? And then I just want to make a comment about the containers from before. And the reason Target has 3 and the Supercenter is proposing 54 is because the volume. A Supercenter is like, you can't, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but a Supercenter is ginormous compared to just a regular Target. So it would warrant a lot more containers. I don't know if 54 is the right number, but
Right.
I just wanted to comment on the previous.
Bob?
I do have, your 4,500 square feet that you're proposing to do this, right? This is just outside where the supermarket end of the store is, correct? It's on that.
I'm not sure, but
Must be look. The amount of square footage that you're going to have contain less than expansion. Would it not be more efficient for them and less taxing on the town from a support perspective than instead of going with 50-odd containers, just to expand the building somewhat more to house everything that they're saying is really just because they need the room for it, and just keep it inside since it's something they want 100% of the time. These containers aren't going away, to just expand the building more. If they're going to go into construction, it's bound to cost them less to do that construction and have it there than taxing the town from the perspective of fire and police and so on and so forth, and safety for that matter. Again, no fire suppression out there. I think that's a concern for me, and if they're talking about doing an expansion already, why they wouldn't entertain that and just eliminate the other thing altogether.
right, I see exactly what you're saying. With the expansion, I know they're remodeling the rest of the inside of the store as well, possibly making more room for retail area to have to store the items that would be in the containers actually on the sales floor. I don't know that exactly. That's an architecture question. But in terms of just adding on to the store, easier said than done. In terms of actual buildability,
I mean, I realize it's a lot easier to back a bunch of 20-foot containers
Right.
back there,
Yeah.
but that's not easier for us as a town.
understood.
Okay. Sam's something we could.
Best buds?
Talking about the Waltons?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't.
So this is the space that they're going to build within? Is this the space they're going to build within?
Yes.
So part of this involved having some landscaping. If that's what it looks like, it hasn't done well there. but I think that if we look,
I picnicked underneath that tree with my
do
family.
you? Wow.
Just this past spring.
I had like 10 years ago.
So I think if you go to, I think it's for sure in Harriman, but I'm trying to remember if Walmart has along the facade some landscaping. That's probably, they were trying to make a courtyard in the front where people could hang out and then have a little bit of landscaping, I'm sure. Yeah, so see how they put in some landscaping? I
Right.
think when you go to put this in, I'd like you to consider how you might be able to put street trees or something in there, but with appropriate sized landscaping strip so that they'll survive. And if it's possible, I don't know what the ground's like there. Yeah, yeah, I mean, they have a whole landscape group. You would think they'd be able to get over there. But, yeah. Or maybe put a water connection there then, right? If they're digging and they're gonna have that pickup area there. There is I believe, a sidewalk here. And I don't know from a building perspective whether they need to keep a sidewalk there or not. Because I think you're eliminating the sidewalk to put this in. So, I'd like maybe Sean and everybody to consider whether there's still some need for a sidewalk. Now, I think you do show a crossing path because the people are coming out of the door, right? And then they're going to be going to the pickup area.
Correct.
To give it to the people who are waiting. So there has to be some kind of safe access going across. But the need for the sidewalk, I don't know if it's a fire code thing or if it doesn't need to be there.
Or I think the existing sidewalk is there to access the side door that currently is there for the pickup.
Okay.
But
So
that's
the-
being covered up by the expansion, so there's essentially no reason to walk around the building.
So then where is the door going
The
to be?
door will be on plan south, right at the bottom of the screen.
So now they're going to move the door to this side.
Correct.
And so
And
there'll still be some landscape or that,
Those planter beds would be eliminated.
okay.
And that was essentially the reason to put the new landscaped area was just to make up for the change in impervious.
But this is going to be the new concrete pad, this piece in here?
Yes,
Or the existing concrete pad that remains?
yes,
Okay,
just regraded for the expansion.
okay. So
And then
again, I think,
The safety access that you were speaking of, we put a crosswalk at the beginning of that drive aisle, just to get across.
is this the curb?
Yes,
So why is this shown differently than this?
so the gray hatched area is just what's disturbed and being
Okay.
repaved.
So that's the new concrete area that's being
Yes.
disturbed. Okay, but essentially you have all this area in here that some landscaping could go in if it makes sense. That's the north side of the building. So I think that's a Karen question. What can be done, if anything?
That trapezoid area at the bottom, that's the ramp where they use
Yep.
for the carts to
Right
get them
here.
in and out.
Yep, understood. I know you have to leave some flow to get the carts in,
Right,
because I think the carts are over here somewhere.
yes.
Right. All right, so you have the door coming this way, so
And
they're
then
not,
there's a ramp, a small ramp,
and so then they'll come around this way.
correct.
So I'm going to tell you probably what's going to happen, is they're going to come out the door, and they're going to go whoop right across this landscaping, I bet you.
You're talking
It's
about when
like
they
the
come out of the
shortest
door?
path, it just happens. So I think if,
Well, we
I-
got to give the workers more credit than that. I think they would know to not walk in the grass.
At the patrons.
Well, there shouldn't be many patrons at all walking through there.
so the other alternative would be to put some concrete in here for them to go across. Or, I don't know if you can do something here that in some way is going to limit access to it, so people aren't walking across it, whether it's bollards or maybe, or if this was more like an elevated planter, So if this was an elevated planter, then no one's going to be walking in there. And then you keep your impervious. But otherwise, if this is just flat grass, I'm telling you, people are going to go right across it. It's just human nature. So essentially, though, the reality is this expansion has nothing to do, it only has to do with the pickup, and it doesn't in any way relate to the storage trailers at all.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay. Those are my comments for now to look into.
So they're going to come out that front door. I understood it, they were going to come out a side door, but if they're going to come out the front door and cross that crosswalk, how does one get to a pickup car that's further up the page? To walk into the drive aisle?
The edge of the drive aisle, yes. But that's what they're currently doing now as well.
That could be eventually corrected.
This is, wait, let me land there.
I think you're at target.
Oh, yeah, because I was looking at landscaping. Let's get back down here. Okay. So right now, the door is over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is it under the canopy where the pickup is?
Yes, that's where some of the parking is, but it's also a little further back as well.
But it does go further back even though it's not under the canopy?
Right. I believe there's only six parking stalls under the canopy.
Looks like there might be.
Well, the spots under the canopy are bigger than normal. They're
Oh,
12-foot
it's all on
spaces.
this side?
Yeah.
1, 2. Are you adding canopy or no?
I believe it's either being removed or staying in place.
Oh, you could put solar panels there.
Say again?
You could put solar panels there.
Yeah, I guess you could. Well, that's more up to Walmart than.
Making the canopy stay?
But instead of this
the
canopy,
the canopy's being
put a solar
demolished.
panel canopy. Have you seen that down in like Pram's Park?
I just go there to,
We got to leave one for Noreen then.
oh, I don't care, I don't get out there, that's up to the people.
It's going to be Noreen's spot. The Noreen spot. All right,
Can't
so
believe they're
so
going to
you're
45 spots, though.
My thought was to try to leave an aisle between the cars so that the workers weren't in the drive aisle, but
Yeah.
the more I think about it, they're going into the trunks of the car, right? So they
Yeah.
want to be behind the cars.
they're going into the trunks, and I guess so now they're just going across this crosswalk. But in the future, they're going to be coming out here, going around, and then there's going to be a new crosswalk. I think you added it here, right?
Right, because that's an existing. Well, it's not a ramp, but the sidewalk is flush with the pavement there.
So this entire row then becomes pickup?
Correct.
And then how far does it go, to the full length?
Yeah, the full length. Both sides, not just the
And,
one side.
but you're not going to leave a door open on,
Right, the expansion's going to be covering
so
that. door.
everybody comes out through here, but they'll be going this full length. I mean, does it make sense to have another door still? Or it won't work?
I don't. There is a fire access door on that side. It looks like,
Okay,
but the associates won't be using that.
okay. What's back in here? Are these just utilities? Are these HVAC
That's the-
equipment, or what is that?
Yeah, the HVAC.
For
rack
the
house.
grocery,
It's just like the air.
air handlers?
Yeah.
No, it's right here on the side. And so you're not growing or doing anything into that area?
No.
Okay. All right. So, I don't know if Walmart, do they have solar panels in some places? Do they put in solar?
Not that I've seen, at least on projects I've worked on.
Okay. All right, well, we'll see. Anything else we need to address at the moment? Nope. And do you have any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. So you'll be working on updates. We will need to see architectural renderings, and you'll take into account our comments and then come back with responses, and we'll see you, when you next submit.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm going to ask this because Walmart's going to ask me. If we get all the comments addressed and come back for the next meeting, for both the containers and the expansion, do you see approval at that meeting, or would it require multiple other planning board meetings?
I think it all comes down, well,
Has to go to county.
it has to go to the county. So there's general municipal law review done by the county. That's a 30-day time period. We have to have everything sufficiently detailed to send it. So let's say that you get everything we need to be able to send it over for next month. They have a minimum 30 days to consider it
After that meeting?
when they receive it.
Okay.
So until you submit to us, after that meeting, because then we'll decide if it's sufficient to go to the county, it's going to be 30 days. So it's not going to be a March. It's going to be more like April, May,
Okay.
okay?
All right.
Or June. I mean, it's going to, yeah, I mean, it comes down to also, if you don't provide sufficient parking, if we need a variance, then we're talking about another process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's going to depend on what your, plans show us when you come back.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
When you're doing the revised EAF, I know you gave a little summary of what you were doing with the expansion for the parking. You were adding more pickup parking, or reconfiguring existing parking. If you could just include that with the numbers, so it's
Okay.
clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the submission date, Noreen?
27th by noon is submission. Yes.
Be able to get on our March agenda. And we have 2 meetings per month, so.
And they're March 13th and 18th again. All right?
All right, 81 Raywood Drive. You want to come
They're
on up?
sleeping.
I'm actually going to take a 2-minute break. This has been a long meeting. I'll be right back.
Max 2 minutes.
We're going to take a 2-minute break if you want.
Start the clock now. Surprised your guys are still awake. It's been a long meeting here.
Been to longer.
Yeah. ahead.
All right. Okay, welcome. If you could introduce yourselves for the record?
Yes, my name is Shlomi Gelb from Hartman Design. On behalf of the applicant for 81 Raywood, Lot 3.
And my name's Aaron Warner. I'm an attorney from Zarin and Steinmetz on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, so the overall of the project is it was approved for a 3-lot subdivision. Now the owner wants to put on a 2-family house. You have provided a site plan, architectural plans, and 3D rendering of the front of the building. And we are here in front of the board here. If any comments.
John, do you want to begin?
So, as the applicant noted, this is part of that 3-lot subdivision that the board approved. This would be Lot 3, so the furthest one past the end of Raywood Drive. That's in the back, converting to a 2-lot, or 2-family dwelling, rather. The grading and the site plan was updated to include the new footprint of the building, as well as the parking was expanded to provide the 4 parking spots that are required. As you recall, there was a stormwater pollution prevention plan that was prepared for the application. I had a few technical comments on the grading and asked the applicant to provide an updated SWIP for the new impervious area. Based on the plan, there's 1 additional tree to be removed. I question whether or not there's 2 more that have to be removed, which affects the tree preservation requirements in the code. And then a rather big one with regards to this application. So as we talked about on other applications, there's the rear dwelling. And it looks like a portion of this building is behind the lot or the dwelling.
Right.
So Ashley and I had discussed it earlier in the week, and I sent Ben an email for determination to that effect.
Didn't have the issue before because
They were smaller footprints.
right, and they weren't 2 families, they were just single families.
Correct.
Okay.
And this subdivision was approved, yes.
Correct.
Yep.
The original subdivision, we showed 3 single families,
Correct.
and they could do this, because this has been the configuration, even though the one was in the front, the other 2 weren't directly
behind.
Okay. So in this instance, because we're talking about 2s, we have that.
I think it's not even, so the same thing would be if they, had applied for a building permit for a single-family home that was built bigger than what was shown.
And there's different arrangements they could use in theory too. Or it could be a smaller one, but there is a way to get it outside and avoid a variance.
Correct.
Remind me, is this one constructed already or no? So is this being shown for informational purposes? Okay. But this
Like
was
any-
approved as a 2,
That was
Recently approved for 2.
that was which one?
Conditionally approved for 2, yes.
What was it?
was
You
81
represent this.
Raywood
Yes.
Lot,
Lot 1?
house on Lot 2, the front,
Constructed? No.
back constructed?
No.
First one isn't,
The left one? No.
okay.
Things constructed.
Back?
The one in the back is not signed yet.
Okay.
It was approved 1 month ago.
Yeah, okay. I don't think anything's constructed yet,
No,
right?
nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Sean, you mentioned that you had emailed Ben for a determination. Did he provide the determination yet or no?
Not yet.
Okay.
No. So with regards to water and sewer, the sewer's unchanged from the original application. With regards to water, as you know, the Village of Cary Stoll is providing water. There is an agreement, outside user agreement, for all 3 lots to be provided water. I believe there are going to need to be some updates to that agreement. So I ask that you work with Ashley on that. We'll need an updated erosion sediment control plan, and then there were architectural plans that were provided. I had a number of comments on that. One of the bigger ones was the site plan identifies 5 bedrooms in each unit. One of the units has 6 bedrooms proposed. And there was a rendering that was provided, but it was just provided on an 8.5 by 11 with no colors identified, types of finishes identified. So we'll need to have a rendering that identifies those finishes and their respective colors. That was it.
Ash, comment?
The applicant, the Orange County records indicate that the property is owned by a Yokanan man instead of the LLC. I don't know if it was a recent transfer of ownership. The county records aren't always the quickest. So if it's owned by the LLC now, if you could just provide a copy of the deed, the recorded deed that reflects that conveyance to the LLC. Otherwise, you'll need an owner's endorsement from if it's the man owner, then owner's endorsement from them would be required. Architectural already, all the colors and special use. So go through, the board will have to go through. The board will have to go through the special use permit criteria as you did with your other 2 families. I think the only items really would be the trees, as far as clarifying what trees need to be removed and any new plantings that are proposed. Exempt from the referral to the county under the agreement with the county. It's an exemption for site plan and/or special permit for a duplex home on an approved lot, and it would also be a type 2 action under seeker.
Where are we as far as this lot? Am I in the right place? Because it was right up against the village boundary line, wasn't it?
Yes. And the cul-de-sac for Raywood Drive?
Over here? Here it is, got it.
Yeah, right there.
So this is in KJ.
Yes.
All right, so this was the one you were asking about the ownership. So that's showing up as Yokanan man?
He was the owner from the previous application.
Okay,
And I am behalf of a new owner who bought this. I'm not sure if they finished the closing.
okay.
So I have to clarify with them that if they are not a physical owner now, to have signed by the previous owner who is selling the property to them.
Okay. So if it has been sold, then we need an updated application, right?
No, if it's been, so the application's been made by the LLC
Okay.
already, so if they had the closing, if they filed the deed, it might just be a matter of the county not updating their records very quickly. If not, though, then you would just need the owner's endorsement from the current owner.
So, let's start over here. Pat, any comments or questions?
No comment.
Bob? Pat? Lou?
Still no comment.
No comment. Still no comment, yeah.
So my comments are, this, what is considered a basement, is it a basement? So I'm getting at the stories of this building. how much of it is below grade and how much of it is above grade? And is it a basement or, because it doesn't matter whether it's finished or not. It matters whether it counts as a story. So, and the same thing with the attic, because they're showing an unfinished attic, but can that attic be,
What plan is that for the other lot that you're looking at?
oh, am I looking at the wrong one?
I don't know,
This
just,
is the good one.
It
It
says
looks different
128,
than-
2025.
it looks different.
Is this the one?
No, I think that was maybe what was submitted for 81, the other application,
No,
maybe?
this is
Does this look right or no?
this is the right one.
This is the right one.
Yes.
Proposed two-family house, Raywood. But it's
Dated 120.
It's dated 1/22/2025. Maybe it just looks different from what you're looking at?
Yours looked like it was.
Yeah, mine are in black and white, and we will want color. We're gonna want a rendering because we do the architectural review.
So to your point, I had suggested a note be added to the plans, and I'll read it. To the site plan that states, the proposed unfinished basements in each unit shall not be permitted without further approval by the planning board, and as well as the unfinished attics.
So, my comment isn't necessarily about whether they do or don't use it. My comment is whether they meet height and story requirements. And so, if they can be occupied, you know, what is the height of this building? I don't recall if we have stories in our regulations or if it's just height.
Certain zones,
So,
We have here, based on what I did, my research, that this is 2.5 stories, the limit.
okay,
And the basement, if it's based on I followed the regulations, what you have on the eco, it says 50% underground, all the averages. So the basement is not called a story, and the half a story is the attic, and it follows the restriction that a knee wall should not be more than, I don't remember now on hand, but I have designed it accordingly, and I can show it on the plan, and also the height of the attic.
so is
It's
that,
limited, and that's
that-
called a half a story.
is that obvious on the site plan in terms of showing that the basement is below grade so that it doesn't end up being called a story?
not on the site plan, it
Okay.
would only be shown on the elevations.
Okay. And on the elevations, I mean, there's a lot of exposed. So I think we need to know where you're basically pushing dirt up against it. And so somehow, I think on the site plan, they have to be able to show the basement elevation relative to the ground around it, right?
Right.
On the site plan.
Right, which would be done with the grading and then noting the finished floor of the
Finished floors.
basement.
Yeah,
So basically how it's designed is that the grade goes down in the back.
okay.
So the building in front is
Walk out in the rear.
walk out in the rear, and
Okay.
it's fully covered in the front. So that's the way how the average goes, the four midpoints
Yeah.
from the building. And the
Okay.
average has to be 50% underground.
So I would just suggest, I mean, Sean can also coordinate with Ben. So again, here, not an issue, here it's walkout, then what's the percentage, what's happening on the sides? And maybe you already have that, but it's just looking at the elevations and then considering the attic on top. I just want to make sure, because if that attic has a full story height, then where does it fall? Which means there may be a variance.
Right, yeah, no, that's a good point.
What's the access to how is the unfinished attic accessed?
So the unfinished attic is only access from the unit, from the second floor. And the access is only for storage purposes, and maybe for future.
Is it a pull-down set of stairs? Is
No,
it
regular stairs going up. By one side, you have regular stairs going up. The other side,
How do you get access?
the other one doesn't have now any specific attention to it. So, but we can continue the same steps for him also.
You'll show something?
I will show.
Okay.
On the right side, I show the steps. The left side, I can also show.
Again, might be. I've
So
seen
we
these
can
designs
add.
before.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
please.
So we can add to the elevation more information to make more clear about the averages, to make sure that to show how we complying with the ARIC and the heights and everything.
When you have a building this height, and if you do finish the attic, does it require sprinklers?
Third floor would require sprinklers, yes.
Yes, and they have an intention to provide sprinklers.
Okay, that has to be done from the beginning, right?
Unfinished, my understanding is it does not. If it's
If it's
habited,
habitable space, they have. If it's habitable space, if it's more than 6 foot 8 inches, they have to put in, even if it's storage, if it's
okay.
unfinished.
Yeah, I'm not a building code expert, but
Yeah.
The
They
only
have to.
reason I'm mentioning it is I don't know with the hookup or with the whatever, does it matter?
yeah, that's a great point for the water, because right now it's only shown as a 3/4 1-inch copper line. The sprinkler would likely require more than that.
So
And
they are
the-
working with the Kirisio village about the more impact, more water they're gonna use based on the previous agreement, and they're redoing the agreement based on the current use, what they're gonna use for this.
Right, so just make sure that the agreement allows for the use of sprinklers, not just potable.
Okay.
How are we on impervious surface for this property? Are they meeting, they're still within standards?
Impervious for the lot coverage or for the developmental coverage?
Developmental.
I believe I looked at it, it wasn't a huge impact based on the last application.
They're at 20, according to this. Max is 30. The lot is development coverage, even though they're calling it lot coverage. I think we do development,
Developmental
right?
coverage, right, yeah.
So you're within 3%, so this is gonna be it with the parking spaces without a variance. So if you want more parking, so you're showing 4 parking spaces for the 2-family, that meets the requirements.
Yes.
2 per dwelling.
Yeah, but if realistically you think you need more parking, I would put it there now and ask for. But you may need, you may need a variance for development coverage unless there's something pervious that could be put here. I don't know that's even worth it.
They are proposing pervious pavers, however, there's the determination from Ben that pervious pavers are not, or do have to be counted towards the lot coverage.
So the applicant will see if they just gonna take it away, and maybe, or they're gonna have to reduce the building size, or to have to go to the ZBA for that.
Yeah, because, plan it realistically what your needs are. So if there are families there, cars, better to show it. That you're designing it I would like to make sure though we have some vegetation around here. I don't know how much, there's an easement, sewer easement. What's our yard? We don't have much of a yard requirement in this zone, the rear yard? What's the rear? $35 feet. So is that, okay, so you have your decks in 35 feet. We should, there's a requirement in terms of the yard that can be covered by accessory. So if this is 10 feet, then I'm guessing that, the decks are in the 35 feet,
Yes.
for sure. Yeah. Which I think is allowed. I just don't recall in the zoning if there's anything that says there's a maximum amount of how much you can cover your yard. Because there's still a desire to get some grass and get some landscaping around the buildings. Make sure your calculations with the porous pavers, that it was still considered development coverage as per, because Ben made that determination a long time ago. I think for Monroe Commons. Yeah. Talked about color.
About the color renderings, I want to make sure that you mentioned in the letter that you need from all the sides, or just you need more specific to specify the names on the rendering?
Both. Well, I should say, the names definitely, I'll leave that up to the board, whether or not you want to see all four sides or just the front.
Because on the other application, we have just one side, and on the elevation, from the architecture elevation, we have all the sides. But in the rendering, we had just one side. It's if you want to see all the four.
As long as the architectural elevations identify all the colors and the types of materials, that's all I think
Right.
the board needs, yeah.
So if you're going to put a different color on each wall,
Then you will need.
we need to see it. But if it's all the
Okay.
same color, we only need one. So I think it really depends on the materials you're going to use.
Mhm.
But for instance, on the front wall, if you don't have brick, and on the side wall you have brick, just give us a little, at least, little,
Shot of both sides.
like a little inset of what the brick looks like,
Mhm.
colorized. Anything else that we can think? That's what I can think of. Do you have questions?
The first question is about if it's a rear building, because the 8 feet, this is just 8 feet behind the proposed front building.
Right. And we're waiting for the building inspector. So as soon as we get that, we'll give it to you. Because that may then require, is that a prohibited use? It's a prohibited use. So it's different than just getting an area variance. It's more complicated. Does your owner own all 3 lots, or
No.
just this one?
It's 2 other owners.
Okay.
The first owner, I think, he's still owning the front lot. And one owner owns the lot 1, which is the left back lot. The other owner owns bought now the right back lot.
That was just, capable.
I don't think so. Smaller with the house. They're anyway not going to be able to do a 2-family because it's less than 20,000 square feet. So it's going to stay a single family. So maybe it's an option to have a conversation with the front owner if they anyway not interested to have, so the house should be the width of what it's proposed on the site plan. Maybe this can work out, should not be a rear house. It's a good idea. Okay, we'll
So
discuss
I
that.
think
I don't think he
I
will
don't know
want.
if it
I don't
can-
think he will want because everybody wants to build the max.
yeah, exactly.
What's allowed on his lot.
But maybe there's something.
Mm. Mhm. Or I will hope maybe the interpretation will be that
Or the
if it's
interpretation
a
could be,
so,
yeah.
so less, it's not called a rear
Yeah.
house.
That's Ben's call. So, anything else you can think of?
That's all for now.
At some point, it's really,
Public hearing.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
and,
Nice night.
27th at noon.
let you know.
You too. Thank you.
I was doing all the voices.
This is one of the
One fell off.
I took Joel.
All right, well,
Try to get more to leave, but they won't.
we'll attempt to do the minutes or some of the minutes at the next meeting. Plus, because Jeff's not here, Dylan's not here, it's not even worth, I don't want to go through who's here, who's not. So I'll make a motion to adjourn. May I have a second?
second.